This is your definition that you guys wrote. It says that scientific research that increases the transmissibility among mammals is gain of function. They took animal viruses that only occur in animals and they increased their transmissibility to humans. How you can say that is not gain of function?
It is not.
It's a dance, and you're dancing around this because you're trying to obscure responsibility for 4 million people dying around the world from a pandemic.
Wow, Senator Rand Paul really going after Dr. Fauci, and a lot of us think it's about time Dr. Fauci gets called out. Actually, Senator Paul has been on this case for a long time, and he joins us once again. Senator Paul, Republican of Kentucky, welcome back to Newsmax. How are you, and are you pleased with how yesterday turned out?
Well, you know, I think the truth is important. I mean, 4 million people have died so far, and if this came from a lab and came from people in the lab purposely trying to make viruses more virulent or more pathogenic, more dangerous, boy, what a crazy thing. And I mean, we really should have a debate in our country whether this kind of research should continue, whether we should be funding research in China at all, but really whether we should be funding gain of function or making these super viruses even in the United States. I think it's a mistake. I think there have been scientists warning for 20 years that a virus was going to escape the lab and cause a pandemic, and now it looks like it has.
I want to play another clip from yesterday, and we'll pick it up after.
The point that you are making is that the grant that was funded as a sub-award from EcoHealth to Wuhan created SARS-CoV-2. That's where you are getting. Let me finish.
We don't know.
Well,
we don't
wait
know
a minute.
if it did come from the lab, but all the evidence is pointing that it came from the lab, and there will be responsibility for those who funded the lab, including yourself.
I totally
This committee will allow the witness to respond.
I totally resent the lie that you are now propagating.
Let me see if I understand. Money did come from the NIH through this eco organization to the Wuhan lab to do, in your opinion, gain of function research. That seems to be pretty ironclad. He's saying, well, there's no way that the money actually was used to create the virus itself. Those two things can be true or not.
Well, he's arguing something that we're not arguing. We didn't argue that the research involved and published by Dr. Shi, she didn't admit to creating COVID. So in her research, she created a novel virus that wasn't known to man, did not exist in nature, but it wasn't COVID-19. We're not saying she created it and admitted to it. We're saying that she was doing the type of research that could have created COVID-19 and that may well have, and that they may not have been honest or forthcoming about it. But what we do know publicly is that Dr. Shi, the bat scientist from Wuhan, published a paper in which she lists the NIH as funding her paper. She lists the grant number, for goodness sakes. So there's no question the NIH funded it. The question that Dr. Fauci is trying to misdirect us with is that he's saying it wasn't gain of function. But really, this is readily provable. We need to be getting scientists on the air across America and asking them that question. You know, there are many scientists out there who know the answer to this. Dr. Redfield was a virologist. Someone needs to ask him, was it gain of function research that was going on in Wuhan? Because to most of the physicians and scientists involved, I've asked, was this gain of function? They say this was the epitome of gain of function. They took an animal virus that doesn't infect humans, they modified it in the lab and made it such that it would infect humans. That's the definition of gain of function research.
That's the definition of gain of function research. And he was getting emotional, very, very testy. You were very precise in what you were saying. And a strange way he was as well, but I think maybe to confuse the issue. I want to play one more clip from yesterday, please.
Those viruses are molecularly impossible to result in SARS-CoV-2.
Viruses caused the pandemic. We're saying they are gain of function viruses because they were animal viruses that became more transmissible in human, and you funded it.
And you
admit the truth.
And you implying,
Senator Paul, your time has expired, and I will allow witnesses who come before this committee to respond.
And you are implying that what we did was responsible for the deaths of individuals. I totally resent that. And if anybody is lying here, Senator, it is you.
Well, I can see why he would resent it and get touchy if he's responsible here. Do you think you caught him in a lie? I understand you're contacting the Justice Department. You think this could be a criminal matter. Is he lying?
It is a crime. It's a felony to lie to Congress. And without question, he is lying. Yes, he funded gain-of-function research in there. Look at it this way. In 2014, they had a pause in funding gain-of-function research. How do you pause funding if you were never doing it? See, he says that he never has funded gain-of-function research, and yet there was a pause on it for 3 years. So they did pause it, except for they made exceptions. And the Dr. Shi research in the Wuhan lab was apparently exception. I'll bet you there's a paper trail. If we can ever get a hold of the documents, I think there's going to be a paper trail, whether it was granted an exception or they simply never reviewed it. And see, this is even worse. There is a debate, at the very least, a debate over the gain of function. Well, they never debated it at all. They just defined it away and said, oh, well, nothing to see here. But that research is gain of function. They were taking viruses that don't normally infect humans. They were creating super viruses in the lab that don't exist in nature. And then they were testing them on human cells and finding, yes, they do infect human cells.
Yeah. Well, you're a physician, and Dr. Fauci is a physician as well. He could get this by others, but not you. And look, quite frankly, I don't understand all of it when it comes to gain of function and the molecular side, but I do understand masks. And I do understand how inconsistent he has been on masks, and we can show that in quite vivid fashion right now. There he is, of course, at the ball game. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. He's not wearing a mask. But everybody, if they've been watching this show, they're familiar with these two clips. Roll them, please.
People should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. If you have a physical covering with one layer, you put another layer on, it just makes common sense that it likely would be more effective.
From don't wear a mask to wear two masks. Was he lying or deceiving people on purpose back then? What are your thoughts on that matter, the mask and Dr. Fauci and what he said and didn't say?
Much of his dishonesty comes from elitism. He believes that the common man's not smart enough to know things, so he may have to lie on occasion. This is what Plato called noble lies. He lies with good intention. So when he told you that no masks worked, he was afraid that you would buy the N95 mask that would be sold out, and it is the mask that works, the N95, and they use them in the hospital. And later on, when he told you all masks work, he didn't want you to buy too many of the N95 masks. And so it's really about he has a superior truth that he's trying to prevent you from making mistakes as individuals. And so he does have to lie to you sometimes, but he sits on this elite spot that he thinks that he is able to, and he's doing it for your own good. But that's really the epitome of elitism, and the left is they think we're not smart enough to make our own decisions. And I actually think the opposite. If you look at the people who've been told that over 65 is a significant risk factor, 85% of those over 65 decide to take a vaccine. I think we're actually very rational people, and given evidence, we will in a free society make wise decisions. And if we don't, the people who suffer are the people who make bad decisions. So there's a selective process for good decision making.
Senator Paul, Dr. Paul, I'm so glad you're there. Many thanks, and come back anytime, please.
Thank you.
Be right back.